So the question is, why the name Augustus? Did I know someone named Augustus? No, I never knew anybody named Augustus, I don't think. But I wanted it, well, there are a few reasons. First, I wanted a name that could be, like Hazel says at the beginning of the part that I read, that she likes people with two names where you can choose between their names, unlike Hazel, which is pretty singular in its meaning usually. So I wanted it to be someone who can have two names, but I liked Augustus and Gus because they're such opposites. Like I said earlier, I was trying to tell in a way like this very small epic, and in a lot of different ways I was trying to be conscious of, you know, Shakespearean epics and Greek epics and those like star-crossed love stories of history. And Augustus is a very kind of like Roman emperor type of name, and then Gus is like a very short, small name, almost like something that you would call a child or a caterpillar, for those of you who are familiar with my favorite children's book, Gus is a Bug. So, I mean, the reason I called him Augustus was because I wanted it to be, oh nice, I wanted it to be both, you know, both something that could be read as this like big, tragic character or something that could be read in a very small way. Other questions? Yes?
So, as an author, what's your relationship to writing about readers? Because this is very much a book that's about readers that are reading this book by this very strange author.
Right. So the question is, as a writer, what is my relationship? You know, in the book, I'm writing about readers. That's essentially the question. That's very nicely put, by the way. And I'm writing about people who are reading a book that doesn't exist, which is I'm certainly not the first person to do that. I stole that. I stole it from Gatsby, I stole it from Shakespeare, I stole it from lots of people. But I wanted to write about readers and the weird relationship that they have with the books that we love. You know, for instance, the relationship that I had with Infinite Jest and David Foster Wallace, or the relationship that I had when I was younger with Catcher in the Rye and J.D. Salinger, this sense of really intense identification with a person you don't know, and who in all likelihood, in reality, is not the person you would like him or her to be. And it is a complicated relationship, and it's certainly something that I've become more conscious of as, like, you know, when I was reading at Elliott's high school, and there were 12 people there, and 11.2 of them didn't care that I was there, versus now, like, I've become much more conscious of the weird relationship that books facilitate between an author and a reader. But I also wanted to think about all the ways that, you know, that reading can facilitate transcendence in a way that real life never can. And so on some level, the reading of An Imperial Affliction, this book that they love, does so much more for them than the author of the book can. Like Marcus Zuzak, not to brag, but he is my friend. My friend Marcus Zuzak once said to me, the book is the gift. And I believe that, like the book is the gift in the relationship between writer and reader. It is both the gift that I give you and the gift that you give me. And the book has this very strange life in it because it's not real when I finish writing it. It can't work without both of us. It can't be good unless I make it good, and it can't be good unless you read it well. And that's a very particular relationship. So I did want to think a lot about that in The Fault in Our Stars. Yes, in the pink DFTBA shirt. I quoted the love song of Geoffrey Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, and if there is any significance to the stanzas. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wanted to try as best I could. I mean, that poem ends with one of the great sort of twists in literature, till human voices wake us and we drown. And I wanted to build as well as I could to that, because I wanted Hazel to be very conscious of the end of that poem in a way that Gus wasn't. Oh God, there are so many hands. I have to call on someone in the back. Person who's standing aggressively. Do I have any advice for young writers? I do. I would say two things. The first thing that I would say is to read a lot. Reading is the apprenticeship that writers have. Reading is how you learn how people in the past and in the present used text to try to convey ideas and emotion. And so I believe that reading and reading critically and thoughtfully is hugely important to any writer, whether you're starting out or whether you're established. The other piece of advice that I would give is to tell your friends stories, stories from your life especially, and notice when they're bored. Because your stories are always interesting to you, because they happen to you, and you are at the center of your life. But your stories are almost never interesting to other people, because they're busy thinking about their stories. And so one of the great challenges that we all have as humans is getting other people to care about our stories. There are a lot of ways to do that. One of the ways is to make the stories really good, and one of the ways is to listen to other people's stories, which ends up attracting people who will listen to your stories. But I do believe that if you tell people stories and you notice when they're bored, you learn a lot about how to pace a narrative. Yes?
Me?
Yes.
Okay. When I was reading The Fault in Our Stars, I noticed a motif of feet, and I was wondering...
A motif of what?
Feet.
Feet?
Yes.
Might have been, I mean, this might have been an accidental motif, to be frank with you.
That was basically my question, was whether that you personally noticed that, or that was something that I picked up on.
I can't think of any feet in the whole book. Does any? I mean, I don't even think of them as having feet, except that Gus just has the one.
Two examples that I specifically remember are Caitlin complaining about her feet being...
Oh, yeah.
And Hazel mentioning that Peter Van Houten's feet were...
Oh, yeah, really hideous, yeah. So, I mean, well, yeah, that is completely coincidental, I think. Like, I'd like to... But, like, the pleasure of being a reader is that the book does not belong to me, it belongs to you. And so like, if you want to write a PhD thesis about the feet in The Fault in Our Stars... I'm not kidding when I say that. Like that made me as legitimate a reading of the novel as any that I could suggest to you, and that's not a joke. I really believe that. I really believe that it doesn't really matter what authors think about their work or what the author's intent was. The pleasure of reading a novel is not in like trying to understand the author. Yes, purple shirt.
Pride and Prejudice sweatshirt.
Oh, nice.
I'm sorry to change the subject. I'm Andrea, by the way. In Looking for Alaska, I've wondered this a lot of times, what was the significance of Chip and Miles trying to, like, decode Alaska's death? I'm sorry, Nick. I'm sorry.
You have to remember the vast majority of people in the world have not read the book.
They do the investigation.
But I will answer your question without spoilers. First off, nothing that she said ruins the book because I did not intend for that to be a secret. I really didn't. I didn't don't apologize, and I didn't intend it to be a secret. So, but the answer to that question is that all of human life is essentially an attempt to try to wrangle meaning out of ambiguity, I think. And I was trying to find a very specific, very tangible example of how we see this ambiguous mess and we try to construct meaning out of it. In much the same way that, for instance, that one looks at the sky and finds constellations. Yes, in the green sweater. How did I approach writing from the perspective of a teenage girl instead of a boy? You know, like, all writing is an act of imagination, or at least all writing of fiction is an act of imagination, and I'm not a teenage boy either. And, you know, I'm not very much like almost any of the characters in my novels. You know, like, I was able to write Hassan and without being a Muslim. I was able to write, you know, what's his name? Colin Singleton. I've written a bunch of books. That was a long time ago, man. I'm old now. Without having been a child prodigy or anything approaching a child prodigy. So, yeah, so it's all an act of imagination. And I was mostly imagining what it's like to be Hazel, not what it's like to be a girl. Yes, with the plushie thing.
You mentioned in your typos video that there's a typo in the author's note.
There is. I say neither or when I should have said neither nor, but if you have the second printing, that's been fixed. Yes. The question is, did I base Peter Van Houten off of anyone I know? And I'm going to answer that honestly. I would usually lie, but I feel like being honest. Yes, me. I mean, that's the truth. Peter Van Houten is what I'm scared, what I'm scared to be, and what I'm scared I am. And I think Peter Van Houten is also what Peter Van Houten is scared that he is. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Where do you come up with the names of the characters in your book?
Where do I come up with the names of the characters? I mean, it depends, but I try to think of resonant names in much the same way that you do when you're naming a child. So I wanted Hazel to be called Hazel, for instance, because partly because it's a name that only has one meaning. There aren't many nicknames for Hazel, and partly, I'll finish, don't worry. But mostly because Hazel is an in-between color. It's a color between colors, and Hazel is in many ways living a life between lives. She's living between adolescence and adulthood. She's living between... I'm fine. You guys calm down. She's living between adolescence and adulthood, and she's also living between sickness and wellness, between life and death, between lots of spaces. So that's why I named her Hazel. I'm sorry I don't have time for more questions, but I don't want to get shocked. It's super, super important to me not to get shocked. It's I've only seen Hank do it, but it's very unpleasant. So I will now bring out Hank Green, and we'll answer some questions together. So we will still be answering your questions.